So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this dialogue, AI and the End of the Web. We are very fortunate today to have two speakers who in this community we hardly need to introduce. Moshe Vardi is one of the leading voices in computer science and also one of the sharpest critics on how the internet has developed from an open promise to an infrastructure shaped by advertising, surveillance platforms, and now, of course, artificial intelligence. Very welcome. We're happy you made it here. And Hannes Werthner is one of the central figures in digital humanism, not only here in Vienna. His work has been crucial in asking how digital technologies can be shaped by democratic values, human rights, and public responsibilities. You have to be here, but we're also happy that you're here with us on the panel. Hello. This session is meant to be a dialogue not only between the two speakers of you, but also with the room. We will reserve the last 20 to 30 minutes to your questions, but if you have a very urgent question, please just signal and I will try to bring you in as we go along. The title of this session is deliberately dramatic. Is AI the end of the web as we know it, and do we feel fine about it, to quote a bit of REM here? We don't know the answer for sure, but it's clear that something important is changing. The way we search, the way we know, the way we trust, and the way how public knowledge is produced. So Professor Vardi, I want to start with you. You wrote about how the hippies destroyed the internet. And I want to start with that very early promise: openness, access, connection, shared knowledge. What exactly went wrong there? Was the failure built into the ideal of openness, or did it begin with the open web meeting advertising, surveillance, and platform economics?
So what happened is an old mistake we keep making again and again. We look at something, we think this is bad, so we should do the opposite. That's not always the case. Sometimes we say, this is bad, let's do less of it. Let's find the middle ground. We saw that capitalism, we look at 19th century capitalism, this was bad, and we say, well, there was a solution, communism. Let's do away with private property and private businesses. And we know what the result was, okay? So kind of people looked at this and said, oh, information should just be free. And for academics, yeah, that sounds wonderful, right? We love information. We don't, we just put everything out there. But many other people, the way they make a living is by generating some kind of information. Think of artists, okay? Think of, all kinds of things. People produce information, they want to get paid for it. In fact, there was another vision for the web by Ted Nelson, who invented hypertext, which is a precursor to the web, and he wrote an important piece that's been forgotten, and he called it a penny, a thought for your penny. There is a phrase, a penny for your thought. What he wrote, it was a thought for your penny. The idea was that, imagine that you open a New York Times and you have to pay to read an article, I don't know, like 5 cents. He said, sure, it was 5 cents. $5, maybe not, but 5 cents, yeah. And enough people read it, yeah, they can make money. They can make money this way, because if you look how much you're paying for newspaper, you're probably paying about 5 cents per article or something like that when you buy a physical newspaper. But for some reason, the web never was developed what people call micropayments. Overhead of managing it just never justified it. So when Tim Berners-Lee came, he said, no, everything should be free. But if it's free, there's no market. So you have to give credit for what happened when Google started, and they said, how are we going to make money if search is free? And they came up with the idea, advertising. And they said, look, that's how, other media do the work. If you charge us for the full cost of television, charge the full other thing, people will not use it, so we use advertising. And maybe that's the original sin. Advertising. But that's part of our culture by now, it's accepted. That's what they said. But advertising, people call it online advertising, is not very effective. On television, on the radio, when there is advertisement, I have nothing else to do, okay? How often am I going to run to the bathroom? A newspaper, if they're not, other than classified, they use size. And there was an early period, I remember still, early period on the web, and people tried to have big ads on the big banner ads, and the user hated it. They didn't want all the real estate on the screen to be taken by ads. Then came the next step. Google figured out mass customization. We know so much, we're going to collect data about you, and we're going to show you advertisements that you want to see. So when you do a Google search and I do Google search, we see different advertisements, because whatever Google knows about us. And that is, to me, when Google started to do not be evil. And then that's how they start the slippery slope, because now we are the Silicon Valley phrase, if you're not paying for it, then you are the product. And there is something about Google that people don't know. It's not well known, but it's been publicized. Sometimes in the previous decade was an epic battle inside Google. So originally there was something called the page algorithm that decided how to rank search result. But that's too easy to spoof by creating fake links. This is known as search engine optimization. And so there was a huge fight inside Google, how to rank search results. Camp one was, we are pro-user. We know a lot about the users. We will rank the result, but what we think is best for the user. The other camp says, we know how much money we make on every page. We will rank the results based on how much money Google make. And think about what it means. Google, for many people, Google is our lens onto the world. We want to know about something. We type into Google. The answer is what Google shows us. And now we know that all have been optimized for Google. There was a huge fight. The people who won got promoted for Google. The people who lost left Google, and they wrote about it. That actually led to an observation. People noticed the quality of the search is not as good as it used to be. And that's what Cory Doctorow wrote about enchitification. And he started that people look at the Google search and said, the results are not as good as they were, because Google essentially gave up on giving us the best result in terms of quality, and it went to just optimizing for money, for profits. And so the fact that we decided that information, there can be no market for information, people still have to make money somehow. Instead of figure out other market mechanism, how much should we pay for things we want? You know, people are saying, paywall is this horrible thing. People have this gut reaction, paywall. Oh my goodness, I have to pay to read an article. You have to pay for everything in our society. I mean, people want free information. I say, why not? I live in the United States. Why not free medical care? But free food. You can imagine many, many things that life would be good if they were free for at least the people who cannot afford them. Why should we decide? The only thing that should be free in our society is information. And Facebook then went and took this idea of mass customization, the whole next level, which is the algorithm. We think we see what our friend puts there. You don't see stuff from our friends anymore most of the time. You have to make an effort to go see the stuff that your friends put on Facebook. The algorithm decides what to show you. If you look, most of the stuff you're seeing is sponsored content.
So it is a bit of the open web meeting advertisement, meeting social networks, etc., where it all went down for you. Hannes Werthner,
can I add something?
Yeah, I want to add a digital human perspective.
Because one thing is that, and this links very well with the discussion previously with the presentation, we are not only the product, we are also the producer of data.
Yes.
So we are doing the work for them. So what they're doing, they're somehow aggregating it, they're classifying it, things like that. And I think what's really from a theoretical point behind it, what Moshe describes, is this tragedy of the commons. This is something you have an open space where you have access without any limitation. And Ostrom already showed this, she got the Nobel Prize, that in such a space you need some rules, some democratic rules, distributed rules. And this is, I think, in parallel to what happened in the web space, is a deregulation in the US. I think this is the time of Clinton with the Democrats and things like that. It was also the, let's say, deregulation of the financial market. So there was enough money on the financial market to be invested into the web. So we had a deregulation on the level, let's say, of technology as well as on the financial market. And this led to the immense growth of this website, which was comparing to Europe, which was not so far behind at that time. We didn't have, let's say, the means as well as the knowledge to compete at that level at that time. So I think it was somehow the tragedy of the commons. And on the other side, they realized that they could sell us and that they could misuse the individual user.
And maybe also that there was the vision of what you can do with data, whilst users were like, data, what do they want to do with it?
Yes.
Like data lake is for most people probably something very abstract, and they imagine lake would be nice because it's summer. I want to come back to the title. Is, for you, AI really ending the web? Are we moving from a web that humans, you already mentioned it a bit, that humans navigate, where we search, where we click, where we find also universities or institutions, moving to a web that machines read and summarize and filter it for us with all the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes along? Because if I trust the LLM, that this is the result of a reality based on the search someone prompted in there, go there to find the answers. We don't see it yet. Okay, sorry, Grok. But apart from that, we don't see it yet so hard, but the ground for manipulation of a society is laid there.
So,
whoever wants to start.
I have to make one short remark, Moshe.
Yes, please.
One short remark.
yes.
Sarah Kriesche, you got the Journalism Award for Computer Science.
Yay.
Yeah, you got it. I really wanted to mention that because I think none of you knows it. There is this Journalism Award in Computer Science.
In Saarland.
Yeah, which is awarded by the government of Saarland and the University of Saarland, as well as the German Gesellschaft für Informatik, the German Society for Informatics. And you got it for a report on how algorithms form our life. Actually, I really wanted to say that because she's the third expert on the panel here. Just.
Thank you.
Now it's you, Moshe.
I just wanted to say you don't escape my question, though.
No, but I really had, I even have it written down so that I did not forget it.
Here is a basic fact that we must all recognize. If you want to see a lazy person, go look at the mirror. We are lazy. We don't like to work hard. That's why we have technology, to make life easy for us. That's what drives technology. We don't want to be hard. So the previous model was you got 10 links, and you have to go through and process them and get the information. And then people discover, oh, I can just go to ChatGPT and ask my question, and I get an answer. I don't have to go and wade through web pages to do it. So Google noticed people are migrating to ChatGPT. So they said, we must adapt. So now you get the AI summary. So what happens? So first of all, think the implication is even before that, you lens on the world, you view the world via the Google lens because they rank the result by optimizing for Google. Now you're getting the answer that Google wants you to see. Now we have this illusion, oh, it's the LLM. Well, this LLM developed by Google, okay? Let's remember that number one. So you're seeing things through the lens of Google. But the other thing that happened, because you're lazy, Google does give you a little link at the bottom of the AI summary, and you can go there. How many people go there? I got the answer, I'm done. Some people, yeah, okay, Few of us are hardcore, and we go there because we don't trust Google. But even that, it's one link that Google gave us. Okay, do we look through several links? And so what happened is that places that measured how much traffic they get, they kind of see the traffic going down. It's called the referral rate. And the phrase is now people call the Google zero. What happened when nobody comes? So, if you look at what happened, for example, newspapers, okay? Newspaper already, because their circulation declined, advertising revenue declined. And what we see it mostly, you have the big brand newspaper, New York Times, Washington Post, a small number of newspapers are big brand newspaper. But even Houston, which is a city of 4 million people, the local newspaper is struggling because much of the advertising revenue has gone to big tech, to the platforms. And smaller cities can no longer don't have newspapers, they just close down. And so there is implication, we have another panel now on democracy. But part of democracy is we know what's happening, and it's reported by newspapers. And these small-town newspapers just have died away. But now, what happened even to bigger newspapers? People don't go to web pages. And so the whole economy of the web, even though it was, I criticized that model, but there was an economic model there. And it was also the economic model even for Google. Google made money by selling AdWords, okay? They sell AdWords to advertisers, and when the AdWord shows up in an article that you read, you're seeing the advertisement. But if people are not going to read these articles, then this is, places that depend on advertising income, that income disappeared. Google will make money somehow, but the only way I think they're going to make it is their answer, the summary, which you think is an objective summary, that will become the advertisement.
Hannes, you wanted to add something?
No, but this is exactly what's happening, what he said. We had different entrances to the web, and these are reduced now to several LLMs, very, very few, and which are linked somehow becoming the search engine of today, okay? It's not just random that Google is going into Gemini and those things, because this is important for them for survival. They don't have to do the work, okay? Moshe just mentioned, there's the link below when you have this Google summary, 1% of you click on this link, 1%, the numbers go down. So what's really happening is that instead of having a multitude of entrance points, we have very few ones, which are these LLMs, which are somehow trained by the data they get from the web. Okay, the business model below is somehow eroding. And this is, then the question is, how can you sustain an infrastructure, a content infrastructure, where the major content providers have no business model anymore? Because it's taken by the LLMs, they decide which data they take. So it's not very obvious whether the ORF will survive in this, let's say, taking the ORF, because where is the money they get? Do they get it from, at the end, they will have to make a deal with Gemini, they will have to make a deal with ChatGPT, but then the big players will decide from where to take the content. So already, I think ChatGPT has a deal with The Guardian, they has one with the American Press Agency, so they have access to this different content. But at the end, if there is no business model for all the content providers, at the end, the LLMs will dry out of data. So if I think what is one of the possible futures, that the AI is trying out the web will die, and then at the end, AI will have no data anymore. So I think what's currently going on is, let's say, I think in all those companies, a strategic meeting how to make the business model of tomorrow. The classical business model doesn't work anymore, which was described by Moshe with this, let's say, AdWords and things like that, with advertising. Now the problem is really for normal people, for normal content provider, how to come into these big LLMs. And this is, I think, this is the reason why we have said, okay, let's make really the title AI as the end of the web. With
But
this, I
have
do
to
not.
interrupt you here because I think there is two aspects to it. The first one is the companies say like, okay, how can I cooperate with licensing, LLMs, and so on and so forth. The other thing would be journalism, NGOs, scientific institutions. How can they be seen apart from LLMs? How can the source still be of importance to people and not, oh, I don't know, whatever LLM just gave me that this information is validated by MIT or so on and so forth. But I want to go to the source. Professor Vardi, in your recent text on whether AI will destroy the World Wide Web, you wrote that also, that you have to teach your students to click the link and go to the source. We're very lucky that Bruce Schneier isn't here because he comes from security. Just clicking a link, he would, I think, throw us out of the room. But you, as you said before, you doubt that many people do that. So is source checking becoming a specialized skill rather than a general habit, what it should be? And the other thing is, how do public institutions stay visible apart from the business question, how will I and my company be found by an LLM so I can license it? And I think it's two aspects, and one is more in your field, which is digital humanism, again, like NGOs and so on and so forth. And how do you see that future, or will it be all like one?
So I was, for 10 years, I was editor-in-chief of communication of the ACM, which is probably the premier publication in professional computing. And you have a web page, and one thing you track very closely is, are people coming to your web page? Because you spend money to create this web page, and you want to have traffic. I mean, this is not so much that we didn't actually sell ads, but we made an effort. It was part of the image of the society. And if if people look and they see the traffic disappears, at some point they will say, we are employing so many people to put content on it, nobody comes. And though it will start shrivel away. So, as I said, local newspapers also shriveled away. All kind of places, people will say, nobody comes to my webpage. And then the motivation, even if you didn't make money on it, you wanted people to, you had a message to the world. You put a webpage because you had a message to the world. If you discover that nobody comes, at some point it will just gradually wither away. But what we've been hearing is that's the raw material. We collectively created the knowledge of the LLM was created by harvesting the knowledge we collectively put out. That the LLM would not have happened without the web, because that's what they train on. They train essentially on the web, on Wikipedia, on Reddit, but collectively they train on the web. If the web starts shriveling, drying out, LLMs will dry out. It was an ecosystem that was, we can complain about all kinds of things that we're complaining, advertising, surveillance capitalism, but at least we had a stable model. And I think what's happening now is that LLMs, by putting AI summaries now, and with referral rate dropping down, that model, however unpleasant it was, and it was a model for the past now 25 years, that model is kind of disappearing as we speak, and no one has a new model at this point. And that's why I'm put a question mark. I don't know that, that what will happen, but I have not heard any cogent explanation. Here, yes, that model is gone. Here is the new model. And the only thing that people say, Google will have to make money. The only way they'll make money is by, again, essentially using advertisement to impact the AI summary. And it will mean a whole other level of enshittification, because we cannot even trust the answer we're getting from there. So I don't have a good vision where the web is going.
Dr. Really a good one with enshittification. Even if you don't know him, you know him by now. Hannes, you wanted to add something. Also, I would be interested in the digital humanism aspect to it, like how institutions stay relevant when this, for them, dystopian future will be there.
I just wanted to go to your two remarks that you have two different players, which one is this intermediaries and the one is, let's say, those really provide the data. And I think both have the same problem because both have to appear in this, let's say, big LLMs. I think it might be even harder for the intermediaries, which are the newspapers and things on. In the dystopic vision, I see a world where maybe the Austrian government has to pay ChatGPT to be a beer on ChatGPT so that the services of the Austrian government can be found. The reason is very simple, because they offer a very simple interface. They offer an interface where you can freely interact. You don't have to know anything to interact with the systems. At the end, you don't even have to know how to write. You can even speak, and they answer you. So this is the simplest interface we ever had. In this aspect, it's a democratization of the web, because you are freed of any technical constraints, and they offer intelligence under because in some sense they made a summary. Why should I read a newspaper? I just ask ChatGPT. They do it. They have this agentic AI. They provide this. So this is. But I think they realize now, by doing that very well, they might kill the others. So if they kill or dry out, as you say, they kill their providers, they have to have some business model how to let them survive. The problem is that they decide. You see, they will decide because it's good for their business model at the end. What digital humanism can do at the moment, I think one issue is to raise the question, to show what is really happening, to have a discussion on that. It's not only an issue of research or interdisciplinary research. This is an obvious societal economic phenomenon, and we have to raise awareness to the politicians. We have to raise awareness to the society. I think democratic institutions have to react. I had the discussion with one of those politicians who are they didn't even understand the issue. I said, okay, AI might kill the web, and then you have to explain all those different things. And I think we are really in a crucial moment in time. We are in a crucial moment in time with different crises, with all those different things, with the capacities of AI, whether this is an intelligent machine or not. But on the other side, we are really at a moment in time where we risk that this informational infrastructure is breaking down.
I'm going to provoke you two now a bit.
Sorry?
I'm going to provoke you two. I'm going to take now the opposite position. I could say, like, studies showed us that even though, let's stay with Google, and no one does more than 2, 3 the most sites to find what they've been searching for. So on the opposite, we could say, finally, LLMs are here. They search the web for us, and we just have to say, no, not this one. And isn't that awesome, this new future we're heading to?
We can build on it, but we have taken the idea that information is free. The difference between saying, okay, Moshe Vardi should be able to open this web page and read, but we have allowed commercial entity to use the same freedom. So information is free not only for me and for us as end users, but all the AI companies are harvesting this information for free. And there is a huge debate even about the issue of copyright law, because they're reading copyrighted material. Does copyright law cover it? Is the issue of fair usage as default? This has not been resolved. But we could just say that copyright laws need to be updated to the new era. And if AI companies have to pay web pages for using their material, then suddenly we have an economic model. You know, this freedom that we had, we say, oh, information is free, destroyed the economy of it. So there was an interim answer, which was in terms of the advertising. But now LLM are basically harvesting this information, no advertising, and we are lazy. We want to get this information because, after all, we don't want to wait through 10 web pages to see it. We're getting the answer we want. We are happy. But you start even before that, like Google News became the integrator. They don't pay newspaper anything, right? They put the link. People go to Google News. They choose the article to read. And for Google, it's link is free. I'm allowed to link to your article for free. Imagine if you want to link to my article and you're a business, then it's not free. If you're making money off my content, you should pay something. And this freedom is destroying the economy of the web.
But we are even moving further now. It's not only free. I think in future we might have to pay to be there. It might end up that you have to pay to be in this LLM so that they use the data you have. You already have the first approaches where you define standard interfaces so the LLM can find you, things like that. No? This is now already established. You have these interfaces you can put on your website, making easy that the bot finds you, okay? So I think we are really moving into this direction, and we have to be aware of what's happening. And it should not happen that we wake up, like in the web, 10 years afterwards, and saying, okay, the system doesn't work anymore. I think it's now time to see. It's not only on a technical level, I think it's also on an economic, informational level, and this is then an impact of the economy, on democracy, and so on.
But it's already now. People think LLMs are free.
Yeah.
Okay? But it depends what you want to do with them. Yeah. If you want better quality, then you say, okay, I need the pro version of Gemini. Then you have to pay. Companies that are using, companies are discovering these productivity tools end up being very expensive, actually. If you start using for the use, if you have, enterprise subscriptions to Gemini, you have to pay for it. And there is even debate about vibe coding kind of came up as, programming will be done for free, except you have to pay for the tools. And people are now asking themselves about are these tools really worth what we are paying for them?
Were you as scared as me when, I don't know, it was some months ago when OpenAI said, like, the free version of ChatGPT will be with commercials, and everyone was like, yeah, sounds fair, but I was like, I think it's because of a picture of what a commercial is, like a little banner saying, buy this product, would be the one thing. But to have the manipulative AI agent then to say like, oh, by the way, this is your question, I recommend you get this and that product, which would be commercial 3.0. So, and I was like, okay, that's scary. So you have to pay to get at least a non-biased version that doesn't sell you products if you go to, people address these systems for every aspect of their lives, from health. There was recently a study how many people trust with health problems an LLM already, which might lead also to this digital divide in another scale. We've been talking about digital divide, like, do you have access to the internet or not? And now it would be like, which access to LLM do you have? And do we care about the web anymore? On a revolutionary scale, it would be fun if no one cared about the web anymore, then it would be the free land of the 80s again, like IRC and so on, if someone remembers, and the small communities that came to be Reddit and so on and so forth would flourish in their niches. That could be something interesting.
But we have changed. It's not the 80s. Now we have 5, 6 players who tell you where the web is or where LLMs are. No? This is really, we have a highly centralized market. We have a highly centralized technology. We can talk how Moshe already explained how this happened from a very broad, distributed environment. We have one of the most concentrated economic and technological situation we ever had.
The current model cannot continue. This really was not fully, I think, will not answer to my satisfaction in the previous discussion about the economy of AI. You look at companies like OpenAI. They have investment now. They have negative cash flow now, over 100 billion. I think close to 150 billion $150 billion. These companies that are making this massive investment, they'll have to make money somewhere. Who's going to pay that money? So somebody said maybe that the US administration will make this investment. We're talking about massive amount of money. And so this, again, we are living in the free era of LLMs. This cannot continue. This company will have to make money. And either we'll have to pay for LLMs, or they'll somehow integrate advertising into it, which scares me even more, okay? And I think what will happen, there will be a free version, and that will be, as you said, that will be an influencing mechanism. And if you want really your objective one, then you'll have to pay more money.
In the talk, before our talk, there was this discussion about, is it a bubble and will it burst? And the speaker then said, like, she thinks that Mr. Trump will prevent the bursting from happening, and you know, like the facade will still be there. What's your take on that? Because it's
there's a massive disconnect between the massive investment in AI and the business reality. It's not making enough money now to pay for it. By when will it make money and how? So now I think OpenAI is saying by 2029 they'll finally get to break-even point. But it's not clear exactly how. In the meantime, there is massive investment. You know, what will happen is that what stock market is like musical chair. Everybody keeps dancing until the music stops. And so something has to happen. I mean, you remember Lehman Brothers went bankrupt over a weekend, and then suddenly everybody runs to the door. And yes, there was a bailout, but it's not, by the time it happened on a massive scale, you know, one company you can save. But if the whole market kind of runs away, government can lower interest rate, all kind of things that can be done. But, you know, so far we have not been able to really stop bubble from bursting, okay? So I have to say, personally, I've looked at my retirement portfolio and I prepare myself for the bubble to burst, just in case.
And then Moshe will come to Vienna.
Well, he is.
No, but the thing is, I think it's, I think there's some probability that this will happen, since these circular investments, and then one or two are falling, then others will also. But I think the technology, in some sense, the infrastructure, the data, the technology as such is here, and it will have this impact. I think we will have to live with that. I think one danger there also is something how are confronted with. I think there's a growing resistance against AI. So you see it even arriving at company level, it's arriving at CEO level when Anthropic is playing the good guy and things like that. You see it that in the Western countries, the majority is critical against AI. It's really the majority, especially the US. You have a very high differentiation. If you go to southern countries, it's more positive. But I think there is some growing awareness on civil society that there's something happening very deep in our society, and we should be very careful dealing with that. And I think this will also arrive at the political level. And I think there will be some broader discussion. So we have, I think, a very dialectic situation where we have this economic hype, we have this technological hype, there's much in mass media, they're permanently repeating these nearly provocative visionary statements of Altman and so on. And on the other side, you have a growing awareness and resistance against not only technology, but also about this control existing on that data level. I think this is something which is also, let's say, will influence this overall development. I think, and when you come back to digital humanism, this is part of this game.
But what would the answer be? I mean, it's Luddism, or is it, stay naive?
Let me be a little more alarmist even.
Yeah.
An economics paper I read just on the plane, okay? And it talks about, we call it a trap that we are going into. And it said the massive investment in AI, massive. You look not one company, you look overall, we're talking now in the trillions of dollars. And he said the only way that this gets paid off is massive productivity improvement. Okay, somehow society, this investment will have to pay off to society, massive productivity improvement. And they said, what does it mean, massive productivity improvement? I mean, lots of people are going to lose their jobs. But the US is a consumer society, consumer economy. If many people lose their job, they lose their ability to buy. So even if the companies are suddenly much more productive, who's going to buy the products? And so the big thing is, we're talking here about the web, but what's still really missing is an economic model for the new world of AI. And an article that was published just recently, we need a new Adam Smith that will kind of give us a vision, economic vision. What does the economy looks like in the world of AI? And right now, there are lots of questions and no good answers.
I'm looking into the audience if someone has a, wow, many. We take it because I'm not a fan of let's do it at the end because you have to remember. I don't have a microphone. Do we have? I think we do have a microphone. So let's open up the room. I can't say it in the entrance and then not keep the promise, right? I hurt my shoulders, sorry.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Perhaps I might have missed it in another discussion, but I have not heard the word China mentioned once so far. Thinking specifically about DeepSeek and the approach that they took, looking at it as an open source material, following up on Llama and the like. I agree wholeheartedly about business models, but there are many more business models apart from transactional, which we've been talking about so far. Question to both of you: do you see any possibility, considering that we were the ones that contributed the data to AI, that we can possibly look at AI as being a common good?
So China has an economic system that US used to have, which is managed capitalism. Okay, if you look back to the United States in the 50s and the 60s, we call it Keynesianism. But it was capitalism, but the government did pull some lever and make some termination, kind of, and then it worked really. The 50s and 60s were a period of very, very good economic growth and shared economic prosperity. And then things went down in the 70s. Combination of Vietnam War, the oil crisis, you know, and we had a decade of stagflation. And then something interesting happened. The same hippies that says information should be free, they hated government. And so when Reagan came in California, first he became governor in California, his kind of anti-government message was well received. Government was the evil thing that launches war where lots of people die. And so part of this deregulation and financialization, all of these things that happened really started in 1981. And deep impact on the United States. Deep impact on the United States we are seeing today. If you want to understand politically what happened in the United States, you can see that under Ronald Reagan there was good economic growth, but growing inequality. And the working class people really felt left behind. And then eventually the left abandoned them. So today when you hear about Donald Trump and MAGA, who are the MAGA people? These are working class people. So the US is still, I think, have not found a good model, you know, that will, how do we combine, how do we still have enjoy the free market and the good thing that it does, but how do we regulate it and manage the economy? China is trying to do it. I'm not enough expert on China to know how successful they are. They have their own problem, they have their own, you know, property bubble. You know, there is always a problem in central management that you miss something, okay? And they had like real estate bubbles in China. It will be interesting to say right now when it comes to AI, it's a two countries game. You have the United States and China, and the rest of the world is just watching. That's the reality.
Your question is very easy and very complicated. Because common good, we already have common goods which are privately owned, okay? If you go to the mobile world, if you go to apps and let's say the services there, this is a common good, okay? The problem is that it's privately owned, okay? Coming back to the theory of we need Adam Smith, there is a theory which is coming from transaction cost theory, coming from Williamson with his book Theory of Capitalism, where he looks at transaction, not only at money transaction, but exchange of good, exchange of information, money, things like that. And where he describes very well that with each transaction, which means exchange of something, you have a transaction. Okay, so you have to search for something, you have to negotiate on the terms of exchange and things like that. You have to monitor, you have to maybe enforce. And from this, he explains the role of intermediaries, because intermediaries have, in some sense, the role of providing trust and things like that. And taking the theory, I think something like a common good related to AI would be something possible, and there are ideas to do that. At the moment, this is related with research. There is some thoughts about a CERN for AI research and things like that. I think there can be similar things on AI in general. For example, we have public broadcasting is a common good. In Austria, for example, where citizens have to pay. And then you can expect some service, objectivity and things like that. I think this would be a model which would work. But this is a political issue. It's Daron Acemoglu, you know, he's the Nobel Prize in economics, who very well shows that there is no automatic trickle down from technological innovation to the overall society. You need political measures, you need societal measures, so that really what we have does not happen what Moshe described in the US. So there is an, let's say, agglomeration by very few getting the money, but you really have this societal impact. In that sense, I have the definition of a common good broader, and I think this would be an answer. I'm not going to China.
But the common good has to be, we know a common good has to be managed.
Yeah, this.
Otherwise, you get the tragedy of the commons. Yeah, that's what you talk about.
Yeah.
Without it, unless you manage it, what
you
happened?
have to manage it.
In some sense, the web was a common good, and what happened? Just what happened in the tragedy of the commons. A few farmers decided to put more cows, and they have destroyed the commons. So what happened is the web was a common good. That's how we view it. And then we have these people who took advantage of that. And now the web is declining, just the same way that the meadow is declining when you put too many cows in it. So you can have common good, but it doesn't work. You cannot have a common good and total deregulation at the same time.
And we wouldn't have had Facebook without LAM technology either.
Yeah. So I like the idea of common good, but it has to be managed very carefully.
Before we hop on to the next question, because Hannes, we talked before, and education is an aspect that you want to tackle within this discussion as well, like seeing what AI is doing. What does education, especially for students, need to provide? Is it still the essential skill that you have to learn programming in the classical sense, writing code, or is it more debugging, verifying systems? And what skills do you need students to get? And also, what is the trade-off? What should we stop teaching? What do we sacrifice? Because sometimes they have to be finished too.
If I would answer this completely now, I would become the super rector of many. I think you have to look at that at different levels. I think you have to have something in elementary school. I think you have to do something at high school level. I think you have to do something at university level, and all those different levels are let's say, they have to be engaged and they are tackled.
But let's go to the universities.
I just want to first say, because we had a now, Moshe.
Let me tell you. So first of all, education has been disrupted. Maybe not kindergarten, but almost all level above.
Kindergarten too.
Why is that? Because for the past, 2,500 years, education had two components, the classroom and the homework. That's how we said, we explain to you the principle, but you need to go practice at home. Homework is over. There's no more homework. So now suddenly we have to figure out, what does education mean when homework is gone? Because you know what will happen if they do homework. They'll use ChatGPT. Princeton just decided to cancel their honor code. We cannot trust students anymore. So this is number one. Inside the university, the discipline disrupted the most, and I think it's extreme irony, is computer science. For two reasons. One, We had booming business for the past 15 years, and we know why. We used to do survey of students, ask why you decide to major in computer science. And I remember when they wrote back, I did some programming in high school, I really enjoyed it, that's why I want to study computer science. That have changed over time to, I hear there are good jobs in computer science. That have changed over time, I hear there's good money in computer science. So they came to study computer science because there's good money in computer science. Poof, this is over. When the class of 2025 graduated, New York Times had a big article, forget $165,000 in Silicon Valley, Chipotle, here we come. Chipotle is a restaurant chain, okay? So suddenly, the students are saying, oh my goodness, there are no entry-level jobs in software development anymore. We are seeing the number of students cratering, coming down. It's not no good money. Why should we study computer science? And we're not sure what to teach them. So we know we have to teach them today to use AI tools because that's now the reality. And we are kind of also having a discussion about, turn off, if you want the good tools, you have to pay money. Who's going to pay that money now? So we are now, as a department, as a business, the fewer customers, and so we have to invest more money in teaching them because we have the department needs the tools, and the university is saying, well, that's your problem. And okay, so we're going to use them to teach the coding agents. What else do they need to know? I mean, you have to remember, because education in computer science has become more and more transactional. I'm coming here to get a good job in software development. We have kind of declined as a discipline and become much more about a bootcamp, for a 4-year-long coding bootcamp. Well, what are we now? We have to reinvent ourselves. We have to think, so everybody said, okay, it's more about evaluation, testing, validation, verification. But this is not, we are now figuring it out. We are trying to fix the engine of the plane while the plane is flying.
Hannes.
Yes, one thing I wanted to say before I answer your question, it's related to education, because on Tuesday we had a one-day conference in German on AI in school. Who of you was there? Several of you.
Wow.
And then it was really, and I think it was a really good experience, and we were really, and there was really one lesson for me was, we need to teach it, but what was the overwhelming opinion was, we should start to teach them computational thinking without a digital device, so that they are approaching is with, this is the first thing, and the second is to start teaching with real-world problems. So not just start with sorting and some hashing or something, but tackle real-world problems. So this is the first thing. The second one is, it's a more contradictional observation. The jobs which are most threatened are the entry-level jobs, okay? Which are the, let's say, where they enter just from university or from other schools and they do the simple tasks. This is automated very easily, okay? What companies want, they want to have well-educated, well-trained, far-looking people. But where should they be trained if they don't have the entry level anymore? So if you go car driving, you need some learning in car driving, initial thing, and not just the expert. So this is something that university have to take care of. The other thing is, for computer science, I think it's becoming, the teaching should go on this architectural level. We should understand that computer scientists are designing the world, okay? We have some similar to architects. We have to do a lot of requirement engineering. We have to take into consideration, let's say, different requirements from different stakeholders. There has to be a lot of teaching in sociology, psychology on this level. I think we have, it's not so much the construction per se, but really the design and then the monitoring, and really, it's an architecture. It's really becoming an architectural job. So in system terms, I have to put it like that, it's more really the architect of it, but taking the societal impact. I think it's something, there was a paper in 2020, also in the communication of the ACM, is computer science becoming a social science? And I think this guy already 6 years ago raised the most important question, which we didn't take seriously at the time. No, he was a minority. Today, this is something we really discuss seriously.
So I think we're at a moment of crisis in identity. We have an identity crisis. Who are we? And there is a, what is the phrase that goes back to, I think, Obama administration, don't waste any crisis, something like that. Let's not any crisis go wasted. We have an opportunity, I think, to reinvent. Because I said, I remember computer science when it was much more of an intellectual, student came to get education. And it is our success have kind of, we're paying the price for our success. We become so popular because the student came because they want to get a skill. And university should not be a place where you just go to get a skill. You go to get education. So we need to kind of rethink, what does it mean to get computer science education? The tools are there. They're going to be there. This is another reality of development. And it means that we can no longer be just coding 4-year-long or 3-year-long in Europe coding bootcamp. We need to reinvent what does it mean to study computer science. And it's a social science, it's the architecture, it's the opportunity to now, with students in more experience. So we always had limits in the size of project we can give them because they had to do the coding. We can try, somebody should do experiment, giving the students a project that I would not have think. Imagine, I don't know, but imagine with a student project. You have to build a whole operating system. But you can use the coding agents, but we're going to use the principle. Your project is build an operating system. I don't know if it's still feasible to do that, but I think we'll have to move. If we want the student to get experience enough, the company will hire them. We have to move them a whole new level in terms of the ambition of the projects we're giving them. And now the tool exists. We'll have to experiment. Is it going to be a full operating system, a kernel? I don't know. But a lot of experimentation will take place. And I suspect within about 5 years, computer science education will look very different than it is today.
You think universities are up for it?
Sorry?
They have no choice.
They have no choice. I think
universities
I think university education is also in crisis because it has not only computer science, but think on a course in philosophy, history. History is storytelling. Okay? History, in some sense, is a discursive storytelling experience. Okay, and now you have machines who tell you stories. Which one are true? Yeah, it's really, so you really have to think how to educate, how to reflect those things. And I think this will tackle all different disciplines.
What was an assignment in the humanities?
Yeah.
Protesting at the backside. Sorry.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Sorry. No,
it's fine. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yes, please.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I am a historian. So I was about to ask how to deal with the whole situation, because the web is in crisis even without AI. And the question, what we will remember at the distance, so looking from today to the future, what we will remember about today, having all these deep fakes, what the ground truth will be, when we won't be able to connect to this ground truth because the web fading, and it fades very quickly, disappears. I can bring a lot of examples from cultural domain, from historical domain, and the AI tends to give the solutions that are ready-made by someone, by the algorithm, by the other people, and they're free to decide. So, to be short, what should we do with that? How to find the truth? How to keep the truth from today's perspective? So that's a huge pain from a historian.
So I think all computer science scientists, and I've been working now in the discipline for decades, we need to go and say a big mea culpa. We are guilty. What are we guilty of? We're guilty of lack of imagination. Because AI is a discipline, it goes back to what's called the summer of AI. It was 1956.
It's now 70th birthday. It was last Friday.
Yeah. The summer of AI wrote a proposal. And you can go on, it was a short proposal. And of course, we think of it's funny because they wanted a summer project to solve the AI problem. But what you did not see there was any serious discussion, what will the implication be? let's build AI because it's a challenging problem. And as a member of the AI community, that has been the mentality. It's an interesting problem. So you give nerds an interesting problem, they will say, let's solve it. There was I remember a story years ago that in the Technion, which is the MIT of Israel, they required them to start studying humanities and social sciences. And it was because they gave civil engineers an exam, and they asked them to design a pipe for blood. And they have to talk about volume and viscosity, and they sat down and computing it. And nobody said, wait a minute, a pipe for blood, what exactly is it going to do? They gave them you gave the nerds a problem, they solved the problem. So the problem that we are given to us was build artificial intelligence. Okay, let's do it. Now, if you want to find some thoughts of what it would mean, you have to go to science fiction. And if you go to science fiction, you see it tend to be much more dystopian than utopian. You go to read AI science fiction, it's very rarely utopian. It's typically dystopian, player piano, all kind of stories. And somehow we weren't too bothered by this. And now I'm starting to worry that the dystopian science fiction writers have not been imaginative enough. For example, these issues of cognitive de-skilling. Well, if you can get all the answers easily, why study? I mean, the thing that now we are worried, ground truth. How do we know what is truth anymore when everything you see can be AI generated? I think that the computer science has not been imaginative enough, and even the science fiction writers have not been imaginative enough. And now the genie is out of the bottle.
Just a short anecdote related to that. I was on a panel discussing with Vince Cerf, who invented the internet, and this was also some years ago now, okay. And it was the 50 years anniversary. And in the discussion, he was also asked, what would you do differently? Okay. And they were designing the TCP/IP, the connectivity, all those different layers and protocols. And he said that we made one mistake. We should have immediately implemented a committee or advisors in social science or humanities, because we saw something would happen, but we didn't have the vision, and we would have needed that. When designing such a strong artifact, technical artifact, we would have needed this advice or these requirements from, let's say, society, from a political point of view, from a psychological point. So they did it. He said we did a technical artifact. We were in love with it, but we would have needed this broader reflection. So this was the thing, and this is related to what Moshe said, that you need more the social science humanity perspective. You also need history, things like that. And for answering your question, I think we need to discuss with historians to solve those issues. But I think this is something we also, as computer scientists, have to learn. There is no, technology will never solve a problem alone. This is a myth. This is something which they tell you, but this is not the truth. You only can solve it with you have some, let's say, broader perspective. If you bring social science, humanities, whatever inside, or the application field. Technology alone will provide some tool, but it might be, let's say, not solving the problem you were talking about.
So TU Wien has a motto, technology for people.
Yeah,
that's the motto of TU Wien.
I hope they know it still. Sorry, but this
used to be. I don't know
somebody here from
but we talk a lot about the technology.
Yeah.
This is a very unique place where we're talking about technology and its impact on society. This is an aberration. We are all freaks, okay? That does not happen in a normal computing venue. Normal computing venue, the talk is just about computing, technology. And in particular, I sent a picture of this room to a friend of mine, and she said, wow, so many women. That's also a fact because we talk about people here, okay? In a normal computing, venue, conference, maybe 10% will be women. Here it's much higher representation. So there is a problem that is kind of very endemic to the field, okay? And this movement that we're trying to create here is kind of trying to address it. We're really we don't have the perfect solution to all the problem. We're trying to raise awareness on a bigger and bigger scale, because this will take, the nerds will not solve the problem by themselves. We need a interdisciplinary conversation about this with economists, with sociologists, with psychologists, with political scientists. Try to figure out how we created a bit of a mess right now, a big mess, and what's the path forward? And it's a struggle to think what is it. I don't think any of us has a good answer at this point.
Here is a question right to you. Yes, this gentleman in the last row. I remember.
Thank you very much. I really learned so much and I agree on so many things, but I really do not understand why you think or say the web is drying out or dying or fading. Maybe you could explain, because in my worldview and AI view, agents are perfectly capable of fetching external data, real world data, make sense of it and tell stories and create stories. And
that's not the problem. No, they're very good at it. The problem is nobody is going to come to your web page. So you are contributing, you're putting a web page, you are contributing to the world's knowledge, you're kind of doing the work, you're contributing to the knowledge, but nobody comes to your page. And so there is something called the voting paradox. What is the voting paradox? You go to vote. It takes effort, time, maybe you drive, you take public transportation, you go, you spend your time. So economists calculated you have one vote. And so they calculate the effort of your vote that you take and the utility you get out of each vote, given that you are one vote among usually many millions of people. And the answer is, it's a waste of time to go voting. When you look at the utility of your one vote, you shouldn't go voting. Of course, if we don't go voting, democracy collapses. So why do we go voting? Some notion of civic duty. Most of us go to vote. We know that our own vote will change very little, but we've been educated, civil duty, we're going to vote.
Okay, so you're saying the website.
Will people develop web pages out of civic duty to contribute to the world's knowledge when nobody gives them direct credit anymore, nobody comes to their web page? Yes, they've contributed to the body of knowledge of the agents. Will they develop web pages out of civic duty? Will we educate people? Look, you're not going to get credit. Nobody will come to your web page other than the bots, the calling bots. But you should do it anyway. Well, I don't quite see that people are so going to be civic-minded to contribute to the common good in such a way. So I'm a skeptic that people do it because they contribute just out of contribution to the good when they get no credit for it, okay? I publish papers. I get no royalties, no nothing. But I have my name on the papers. If you made a deal with me, okay, go on publishing paper, but why should you put your name on it? I have to admit, I'm selfish enough that my motivation to write papers will go way down, okay? I'm going to be very honest with you. Publishing web pages in the world that were all the knowledge extracted by agents is like publishing papers anonymously.
But you have published 400, so it's enough.
Maybe I should stop now by putting my name on it. How many people still publish? You know, there was one project, the Bourbaki project, where people publish anonymously. Most of us want our name on a paper. We get at least the credit of that, right?
But I think the question is somehow, the deeper one is, the survival would be if you have agents coming to my website, this would be sufficient. And the argument of Moshe is there's no person coming, you have no control over the content. You have no control how the content is used, misused, things like that. I think if we're going into a world of only agentic AI, we already see agentic AI as a misuse of a notion because it assumes agency to a machine, which I do not agree at all. I think this is one of the further marketing terms used here. I think then this will not let the business model you need for the web survive.
Look, it's possible that a new business model will emerge.
Yeah, this is, but...
For example, the agents have to pay you if they call your website, they have to pay you something. That's an example.
Okay, I see what you're saying, but that's not what I understand the web is. The media business model is not the web. A personal website is not the web. It's one face of the web.
But I have a personal website. I don't do advertising. So why do I put the website? I think people will occasionally people go there, and it's kind of easy to find. It's not very hard to find. If I occasionally look at the traffic, I get some traffic. If I knew that nobody comes to my website anymore, I'll be less motivated to put it. You know, the data that comes up if you do the Google Moshe Vardi, and there is AI summary, it's just a tiny summary of what I have on my website. I mean, I keep it very up to date, my website. I'm kind of old-fashioned on that way. But if nobody goes there, I may stop doing it. It's a waste of time. Nobody looks at this.
We do have 15 minutes left. Since you have the microphone, could you bring it 1, 2, 3, 4 rows in front
Yes.
so that we can take another question?
And then George.
And George.
And George, yes, you have 15 minutes. Keep your answers short, we do everything. It's all under control.
I try to make the question also short. Is there any outlook or optimistic outlook where big LLMs, or let's say it will be still frontier models that play the biggest role in 4 or 5 years, that they will still be in private hand? Because we talked about the huge investment before that the companies did, and they need somehow the revenue. One way of getting the revenue would be if you have in Fable 5, this a model of Anthropic gave kind of an outlook what could happen, because it's not like non-US citizens cannot use Fable 5 now, to basically have a model that is kind of advanced and you just grant access to it very specifically. And I mean, it is already set to see, but when you have like access to, I don't know, some pro version of one of the models, it is not because itself writes a better paper, but you can just do much more deep research in a short amount of time. So it will be a big advantage, an epistemic advantage, that universities, states will just pay huge amounts of money as like an infrastructure to those companies, like, I don't know, like €1 billion for a smaller state and 10 billion euros for a bigger state. This is how they would make revenue. So is there any way, if models indeed will advance still, that they can be still in private hand and the world will not be a dystopia in 10 years?
You know, it's one thing to make an investment. Intel, for example, somebody mentioned Intel government investment in Intel. Even that comes there a lot of criticism, even from the Republican side, because they don't like government to be involved in the economy. But Intel is a company on one hand in decline, on the other hand, they are still making the x86, which is a very strategic product, okay? But for the US government to take over the AI industry, several companies, I mean, AI, think of who is AI now. It's not just OpenAI and Anthropic. It's Alphabet, and it's Meta, and it's Microsoft, and Amazon. I mean, I don't see it happening. More likely, again, they will have to, we will discover that, to me, the days of these free LLMs cannot continue for a long time. Already I'm saying, organization that want access to the better version, Rice University wants to give us access to the pro version of Gemini, they pay. I have no idea how much, but they pay. So I think what we'll see is partly there will be a free version, that will be pretty shitty, and if you want a better version, then you'll pay.
I think there are also two. First of all, I think this is an open issue. It's not very clear. What you can see is you had something like vertical applications where you go into specific areas. So you have application in medicine, you have application in production, and there they will have some licensing agreement or service agreement.
Yeah.
And on the other side, you have horizontal applications like search engine or some optimization issues. And there it's, can you hear me?
No.
Sometimes.
Now you can. Don't
Look
move
at Sarah,
and
don't
talk.
look at me, look at Sarah.
Yeah.
We look at you.
Now
Yes.
talk.
Okay.
Stay like that forever.
I stay forever. Look at you forever.
Yeah.
So I think in this horizontal part where they have general purpose services, it might not be so easy because it's not so specific. But I think there was one saying by Altman, was it yesterday in the film, where he said, once we have this general AGI, we will ask them how to earn money. So this is something self-fulfilling tautological reasoning. So this is an issue.
One more question from you. So,
Joe,
thank you.
let George have the last word.
How big it is getting.
Thank you. Can I go back to the title of the session?
What? Your mic is off.
Let's
cannot
just
hear
change
you.
the microphone. Does it work? Is it
Tap,
turned
tap,
on?
tap, tap. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Now it works. So I want to go back to the title of this session and ask you two wise gentlemen to provide your own personal optimistic scenario in case the death of the web, as we know it, which you described very well, can provide an opportunity for a rebirth of the web as it was originally envisaged, as a distributed network for information sharing and genuine human collaboration. If you had the control and the means to produce such a scenario, what would it be? And I add, including the possibility of a publicly funded public sphere.
It's a beautiful question. Thank you.
So, in my opinion, the web is originally conceived by Tim Berners-Lee, which was this free common good. That was its own downfall. I think Berners-Lee doesn't quite see it. That vision had in it, it's a wonderful idea, but you come up with you can come up with the same idea. Why don't we have, all kind of free things, and then there's no discipline in using this. You make food free. I mean, I tell people, imagine the following scenario. My department wants to become more friendly. So they're putting in every hallway a tray of chocolate chip cookies, free, warm. They'll replenish them every hour. What will happen? And so the answer is that as much as we don't like to pay, it's a control mechanism on us, okay? So I think the downfall on the web was its idea that it's free, open, and we all got used to this. But I think what AI has done, it provided a new technology of doing information integration. Before that, you went to the Google. Google gave you the top 10 links. And if you really were serious, you look not just at the top 1, but maybe you look at the top 5 and you looked at them. And you did the information integration. But remember, we are lazy. Information integration is work. If somebody says, I will do all the integration for you, then we're going to do it, So I try to minimize how I use AI, but one version I use is Gemini Deep Research. And which is part of the RISE subscription. It's not available unless you have the Pro version. And I can say, tell me about what you know about attempt to prove that P is different than NP. And it will do a massive literature search and choose the top articles by citation and offer a pretty good summary on topics that I know. I would say I will give it maybe A minus. But if I gave it to a graduate student, it will probably not do as good a job. And if I had to do this, what I can do now, I get in 15 minutes, I get a 20-page summary of this state of art in some technical topic. It would take me a week to do. If I say, I will take the top article, I'll print them and I'll read them. It does a fantastic job at information integration. And therefore, the web was distributed information. And I think now that we have the tool for information integration, we're not going back. I don't think we can go back to the distributed information model of the web. It was great for the time. Now that we have this cost-free, practically, information integration, it's obsolete.
The advantage is when you are with Moshe on the panel, you still have time to answer when you have a question, because he will answer immediately, and then I can start thinking.
I'm like an LLM. I'm like an LLM.
You are like but you are...
Now give us something positive.
No, the positive thing is, I think it's good to have information integration, to have aggregation, to have this issue. We have now access to a lot of information we have. It's like an open environment where you can interact in a way freer than we had it before. For having really what you, and I would link it to the common good question, I would do something like a mixture of this transaction cost theory of Williamson, who showed really that you need intermediaries, which hasn't to be private, it can be public. And this links me to the second issue. I would take this Ostrom response to the tragedy of the commons. I think you could provide such an infrastructure with all the pros and cons and discussions, but you need rules. You need rules for, let's say, a worldwide governance. And this brings me, you will answer this question only on a very political global level. You will not answer it in very little environment, not in a European or US American. I think you need a political global perspective. Then you can answer the question, and you can develop a vision which is positive, that it can be used for the, let's say, the benefit of overall society and also nature. I think this is a positive vision I have.
Just a quick remark. There is a scenario, there are several court cases going now claiming that the LLM builders have violated copyrights by calling copyrighted material. We will see if, I don't know how this will work out, but imagine that the court rules, yes, there's a violation of copyright, people that put there, this is not fair use, fair usage, and they should pay. If the AI companies start paying people who put material publicly, that will be a new variable that will change how we look at things. Now, if I'm putting a material, even if nobody comes, but LLM uses it, they'll have to pay me something. Right? Because right now the problem was it was the tragedy of the common, right? The material is out there, and this guy can go develop LLMs, make money, and we get nothing. We contributed all the knowledge, and we get nothing. If that changes, then suddenly it's a new world. Okay, we'll see what happens.
I wish we could answer more questions, but we are at the end of the session. But the good thing is, you know how those guys look like. So as soon as they leave the stage, you can access them if you have any further questions. Is there something from your point of view where you say, like, you want to leave with the audience, something we didn't mention yet?
You can do the following experiment. You want to ask me a question, go to Gemini and say, if I ask Vardi this question, what would his answer be? And let's see how he does it.
Yeah, Nick Cave wrote in the Red-Handed Letter a long thing about write a song in the style of Nick Cave. He had no good words there. Hannes.
Be optimistic. I think we are living in turbulent times, well defined by Katja Meyer. But turbulent times are times where you have chances. And I think we should take the chance. And even if it's very little, I think we have to use it. Thank you.
This meeting is enormously exciting. The fact that we have people coming here for 2 days to discuss these topics, it means that there is growing willingness in society to see a change. And that's where we have to start first, okay? We don't have to have all the solution. We have to have the agreement that something needs to change. And as I said, just last week, the CEO of Microsoft was a headliner in the Wall Street Journal. The CEO of Microsoft saying, AI companies need to get permission from society to do what they are doing. So there's a growing societal change. And I'm optimistic that society will, humanity have always shown enormous capacity to change, but not fast. So I'm always a short-term pessimist, but a long-term optimist.
That's beautiful. In half an hour, we will discuss here, I will be in the audience then, the geopolitics of AI. Since I see Joanna Bryson sitting here already, she will then be on the panel. So much for the teaser for what's coming up next. Thank you both for having spent your time with us. Thank you for being here, and have a good conference day.